Hello, 大家好, I'm Sue Marguerite, and welcome to my little Cantonese corner. Today is very special because I'm joined by Dope Chinese with Gloria. Hey, Gloria, how are you?
Hi, 大家好，我係 Gloria from the Chinese with Gloria. I'm very glad that Sue invited me to record a video with her.
I discovered your channel probably maybe a month ago now, and I couldn't believe your content. It was so good. So I reached out to Gloria and I asked her so many questions about what she was doing and how her lessons were, because as you guys know, I have started teaching characters in Cantonese pronunciation, but I have so much to learn myself that I loved her content. I was learning so much from it. So I was really happy, Gloria, when you could join me for a little chat today on questions you guys have about learning Cantonese. So I hope that the answers that we have for you today and some of our conversation can help you in learning Cantonese, right? Because you had quite a few questions on your Instagram that people asked you. Is that right?
Yeah, so sometimes some newbie of Cantonese ask me this question about the number of the Yuping. Actually, that is the tones of Yuping, and there are 9 tones of Yuping, but we will only see number 1 to 6 of it. But number 7 to 9 will only appears when the syllables ending with PTK. So you could find that it only shows like 1 to 6 there. I know that you teach Yale, right? So I really don't know about that. So is this the same that we have the same number there?
Yeah, I favor Yale much more. I think it's easier for beginners to learn because the way it's written is more in line with what an English person would expect to see. But I have kind of taken to doing a hybrid now. When I'm teaching, I'll talk about the word saying it's like third tone or second tone, like that,
Mm.
instead of saying like mid tone or mid rising, high tone, high falling, mid rising, mid, low falling, low rising, right? So that's like 7. Yeah, so now they don't do the high falling anymore, so there's only 6.
I
And even when I
see.
was learning, I didn't pay attention to 7, 8, 9. I thought I could get by. So is it true, Gloria, that you can still be understood if you only know the 6 tones, right? You don't necessarily have to know 9, or you don't have to be exact with the 9, or is it kind of like you really need all 9 tones?
Well, I think number 7 to 9 actually is according to the number 1 to number 6 tone. The first tone actually is equal to the seventh tone, and the third tone is equal to number 8. And 6 tones actually is equal to number 9. But the difference of 1 and 7 is one is long, one is short. I think we could discuss this one on our personal lesson because we have time limits. Actually, we have lots of things to learn according to the Yupeng or the Yale, right?
I think that's a really good thing because that's something else that I'm really excited about to partner with you in teaching the character classes because I've been doing the character classes now since April. And I started with level 1, level 2, level 3, and now we're getting up to level 4. And I'm finding that I need to be in the class learning level 4. I mean, I know the characters, but in teaching them, of course, you really have to know them and be able to explain them. So, Gloria, like you said, it's better to talk about these in our lessons and not spend time delving too deep because I could talk for days about Cantonese and how interesting it is to learn.
So what about your side? So did any student ask you any question?
Yeah, they did. One of them was the difference between Cantonese and Mandarin. An article I saw recently in italki, and it had said Cantonese versus Chinese. I know what they mean, like Chinese in general, kind of like Chinese overall, and how does overall Chinese compare to Cantonese? But in my mind, I'm thinking, what Cantonese is Chinese? Like in Hong Kong, if you're saying like 我識講中文，即係你意思係你識講廣東話，唔係我識講國語 or 我識講 some other kind of dialect. So that's a question I've always wanted to ask. And my way of thinking is that all Chinese are dialects. Isn't Mandarin just a dialect as well? And Chinese is the written language or no?
I think the difference between Cantonese and Mandarin is that for written form, Cantonese and Mandarin they share the same characters, but their pronunciation is totally different, right?
Yeah.
Like school, 学校 in Cantonese, and we say 学校 in Mandarin. They still use the same character, right?
Right.
And then for spoken Cantonese use lots of different characters, and also we have different funny, interesting slangs as well. Do that make sense?
I think so because, for example, the character ta in the written form is shared both in Mandarin and Cantonese, but in Cantonese they don't use ta, but they learn how to read it in Cantonese pronunciation as ta, even though they never use it. They use kao to refer to he, she, or it, right? So kao is Cantonese for he, she, or it. But then in the written form, it's ta. So when you hear songs sung in using the standard written Chinese, they'll pronounce it in Cantonese characters, which they'll never ever speak. So I think that's just so fascinating how when they go to school, they're learning a language and how to speak a language that nobody will ever speak. Am I right? Like nobody's walking around saying like, 即係他是中國人, or, it's like 佢係中國人, right?
Well, but people in ancient China they would say like the written way. I think the reason why Hong Kong will learn the written way in Cantonese because we need to learn the literature. The literature will write in a written way, not the spoken way.
I know nowadays maybe there's more songs being actually written and sung in Cantonese characters that are not standard. But yeah, I always thought that was interesting because songs from back in the day, almost all of them were sung in the written form. Because for me, when I was learning characters, the way that I learned them and remembered them was from songs. Because you would hear like Zhang Hao Yao, or those sing these songs, and they're not singing in Cantonese, they're singing in the written form of Cantonese. So if they didn't sing in the characters, like sing in the Cantonese pronunciation of the standard characters, I would never learn them. I was always told that Mandarin speakers, what they write is what they speak. So is that true? Like, for example, again, the ta character is still ta in Mandarin, but in Cantonese, it's completely different character. Like they don't even use it.
As I say that, what's the difference for Mandarin and Cantonese? Both of them share the same character, but they read in a different way for the written form. Yeah. So even though if you read a newspaper, they still write those written form. But if you read them out, of course, it sounds different, right? For example, they use 昨日 is 尋日. For like spoken Cantonese have a lot like 係, 佢, right? And also we have different kinds of slang. But in Mandarin, we also have this kind of slang as well. But sometimes it's used the other word for it according to their culture. For example, in Cantonese, we have 得意 for cute. But for Mandarin slang, we have 萌. So Mandarin also has written form and oral form. So Cantonese culture and I think Mandarin culture is different according to where we live.
If I understand right, it's kind of like if we were learning Old English, like Beowulf, like Middle English, which is completely different to modern English. But it's almost as if everybody had to learn Old English because everybody learns the standard characters in Cantonese, right? So would that be kind of right? Like everybody in would every English speaker would also have to learn Middle English, even though we never use it, but we might use it like in songs or in
Yeah, because it's beautiful. Song is kind of poetry, so that's why they use the written way too. But nowadays, they have lots of Cantonese rap. They will speak more a spoken way.
So like in my lessons when I'm teaching the characters in Cantonese pronunciation, we actually go through like a 3-step process with every sentence that we're learning. So we'll read them first as they're written in Cantonese pronunciation. So again, it would be like, 他是美国人. And then the second time we read it, it would be 佢係美國人. And then the third time, of course, would be English and just do the translation. So we go through 3 different levels, and they're learning not only the standard characters, but also the Cantonese written characters that correspond to like 佢 and 係.
I think there is a good way to learn both of them at the same time. It would be more effective if we want to learn Mandarin after we learn Cantonese. That's quite good. And then I think this course will help the student to know the character fast, and so that in the future, if you don't have time to come to class, and then you could also watch more film or watch more TV show to learn from that, because you could read it by yourself.
Okay, so how about, do you have any questions, Gloria, that you were asked?
Well, I have some question from my private student, and then they always ask me, because sometimes when I make a sentence, the number 1 will be omitted before the measure words. They ask me how comes. So for example, when I talk about 我買咗件衫, I will not say 我買咗一件衫. Once when they comes to things, we have to include the measure word, and then before the measure word, if there is 1, so we will just remove it. But when the number is 3, we have to say 我買咗3件衫. I bought 3 clothes.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have another question?
Well, of course, the most common question I think I get asked all the time is the lazy pronunciation. Like, why am I still writing night as N-E-I-H in Yale? So it's written as night with a N sound, but 99% of the time people say light with an L sound. So that's one that always is throwing people off. And I don't think I could ever write it as L-E-I-H, even though people say that, because, you know, traditionally it should be night. So I do try to use the traditional correct pronunciation, but a lot of times it's hard. One pronunciation that I find is one that I won't say is the go and the guo, like the GW. So GWOK, yeah, the guok for country, right? Guok should be
Guok,
GW. Yeah, but a lot of people just say gok, like 中國, yeah, 美國.
That's lazy pronunciation.
Yeah, so that's one I get asked a lot.
Well, about that part, right now, lots of young people, they will have this lazy pronunciation, and also according to where are we from. So it's like in Cantonese area. So I'm from Shunda. So actually in my place, we pronounce the N and L, we will not pronounce it well. But as a teacher, I have to pronounce it quite well. It doesn't mean that when you say "nei" and then you pronounce "lei" is wrong. Just want to communicate, right? So I will not judge you if you do something wrong. When it comes to a confusing word, and then it will cause a problem, like 男同學, classmate whose family name is Lam, and 男同學, a male student. This will not make you confused all the time. So I'm okay for the lazy pronunciation, like no, they will just say oh, I'm okay with it. But as a teacher, I have to be very standard. So I got a question from my page is, what methods do you use to learn to write Chinese character?
That's a really good question. I learned stroke order first. I got some of the exercise books that are the squares.
Yeah.
You can get those and you practice writing them. There's so many great things now, like whiteboards. Just practice on a whiteboard and just wipe it off. Your phone, like WhatsApp, you know, sometimes you'll have, it's great because you can kind of, I just love it. It was so much different when I was learning because we didn't have all these new apps and things. The way that I'm learning to teach you all how to write, and that is with these excellent books. So if you're also interested in learning how to write Chinese characters in Cantonese pronunciation, check out our courses. We're going to be starting them soon again. And like the next course will be opening. We meet twice a week. you get a chance to learn from me, to learn from Gloria, and yeah, would love to teach you. And it's so great because 100 characters in 8 weeks, almost guaranteed. I've been teaching this now since April, and I have not had a student not learn 100 characters in 8 weeks and read
Wow.
sentences right from the first lesson. And it's it's just so good. So yeah. Mhm.
Good progress. Yeah, and I also think some students they told me that oh they want to learn Chinese well, but they don't
Mm,
have time to write them. But I could tell you
mm.
that don't feel bad if your teacher asks you to write it down because when we were kids, even though we are Chinese, we need to practice those characters for pages by pages. So that makes us
Yeah.
have good handwriting and remember the characters.
Yeah, I remember, gosh, when my kids were learning to write as well in a local school. Yeah, it's not like it just comes to you. It does take a lot of practice, but it's fun. So I think if that's our last question, then we'll wrap things up. But it was so great to have you here, Gloria. I'm so happy that you had time. I've learned so much just chatting with you and from your videos. So if you haven't yet checked out Gloria's channel, please do. I have it tagged on my kind of my YouTube homepage, so you can get to it from there. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us, you guys, and we'll see you again here on my little Cantonese corner and over on Dope Chinese with Gloria. Thank you so much, Gloria.
Thanks so
Bye.
much. Bye
Mhm.
bye. Bye bye. Thanks for
Bye.
watching. Bye.